to episode 3 of the PEBAheads. We're going to be doing a little bit something a little different than what we normally have done on the other 2 episodes. We're going to be chatting with board of the PEBA member and Crystal Lake Sandgnats GM RJ. RJ, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, Sean. I'm excited to be here. Really appreciate the work you guys have been doing for the league.
It means a lot to hear that. So I appreciate you being here and thank you for saying that. We're just gonna try to first start off and kind of discuss just the general PEBA, the league itself, where we are today, and then kind of start off by that though, getting into when you joined and kind of the state of the league when you entered. So when did you join PEBA?
So I joined the league in the 2023 season, right at the end, so right before 2024 started. That's when I joined. I think I joined actually oh yeah, I do remember it well actually. I joined the sim right after the Rule 5 draft, and my team was completely pilfered of my Rule 5 draftees. Because so I lost a couple names who I followed over the years. Fortunately, none of them actually ended up doing any big things, so it wasn't too big of a loss. But I remember that when I joined. But when I joined, I think we had something in the 20s, really, really strong league. I was really happy to join my friend Ken, who was GM of the the now known as the Far Striders, formerly the Featherheads. Got me to join the league. So I joined about a year after him. He told me about PEBA, and so ever since then, I've just really loved being a part of our community and just everybody in the league. The history of the league that we have, really long history. We've just been well managed for a long, long time. We've had our ups and downs, but we've just been well managed for a long period of time. And I feel a sense of a community with this league that I never did in any other online community or online league. So I'm so happy to be part of this league with everybody. No matter if you've been here forever, like Mike and Bob, or if you're one of the new members, it's a great place to be.
Well, that consistency definitely was noticed. Like when I joined the league, it something I was looking for. I didn't want just to be in a league that'd be around for a year or two, and you put that time in and it just folds. And that was something that drew me to PEBA right away. So it definitely stood out. But I know when you joined, it was kind of at a point where things got a little unsure of what the future was going to be like. So can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so I was invited to join the board a few seasons after I joined the league, just because I was working on a lot of things to help out. And I was just asked by Morris, who was commissioner at the time, and Reg, who was a longtime GM of New Orleans, asked me to help out with some stuff with kind of editing the rulemaking and compiling a lot of the history and rules that we had at that point. I had gone back and I was just researching really just the history of the league to understand the league so I could be just a better community member and learn how to compete better. So I was just like compiling all this like kind of research on the rules, going back into old messages. And I'm a lawyer by trade during the day. So I like to get the context of all these discussions of what like really formulated the rulemaking in our league, which I thought was really interesting because I just wanted to just understand I was living by the spirit of our league and the spirit of the rules that were developed. So I think when John formulated the league, there were a couple things that I think have carried through to today about our league, which is number one, the history. I think John and everybody who helped develop the league at that time, if you look at like the team names, the locations, the graphics, there's some silly minor league team names in there, right? We've had people randomly discover now, even now, right? That was all carefully planned by John and everybody else around him. And I just have a deep appreciation for that thoughtfulness. And so writing was a really important part of the league and always still remains that important part of our league. And so I would say that that's really the history of our league is in the writing, all the storylines that are shared between all of us. And so we kind of went in a turnover mode a couple seasons into me joining the league, where GMs were starting to turn over and didn't have the time to put in to manage the league like Mike does. Um, Mike puts in an inordinate amount of hours in what he does for our league. I hope it's evident to everybody for the time that he spends on everything, but he spends a lot of time. He spends a lot of time on the details, talking to everybody, managing just relationships, reminding us of the history of the league. Just Mike is just really spends a lot of thoughtful time in creating the scheduling and just making sure everything fits for everybody. Um, and I think Mike kind of swooped in with Dylan at a time where our GM at the time kind of disappeared, to tell you the truth. It was really disappointing to me as a board member. I remember Reg and I were just like, what do we do? They're like, we didn't, so not to throw any names or blame out there, but I think not having the time is something you just have to be honest about, whether it be your own team or if you're in any other, trying to do any other things in the league, is do I have time to really commit to this with everybody else, because everybody else is putting a lot of time into their own team and it means a lot to them. So Mike stepped up and so did Dylan, and they kind of put everybody back together. To tell you the truth, I was ready to walk away until Mike reached out to me, because I put a lot of effort into everything and was like, what am I doing this for if there's no leadership,
Yep.
And so I'm really thankful for what Mike did to reorganize and bring everybody back together again. We had to do some tooling of the teams, and a little bit of a contraction happened and just some of that reorganization, but a lot of work has gone into what Dylan and Mike have done to really bring the league where it is today. And a lot of things happen behind the scenes of just managing the file, managing the server. We had the server crash one time during our draft. We didn't realize that we weren't paying the bills. So we're all logged in, and oh shucks, there's Stat Lab isn't around, and we had no way to communicate with each other because we didn't have Slack. And so we weren't using Slack at the time. So some of those bumps and bruises have kind of brought it to where it is today. Willingness to use Slack, but not forget about the board and the history and the writing. And so I'm just thankful for Mike. He always he's a consensus builder. In my opinion, Mike wants everybody to enjoy the league, get the most out of it. It means a lot to him. And I think Mike is just a master consensus builder. It's really hard to herd 32 guys who are competitive. We all
Oh
want to
yeah.
win, right? We all want to build the best team we can. We might think we're getting the low end, short end of the stick sometimes. But I appreciate Mike is a real good consensus builder and helps bring people together, even if those arguments get heated at times. I really appreciate that ability that he has and the wisdom he brings to the table. So I hope we have Mike forever, quite frankly, to continue the legacy that JR started way back when. So it's some of my thoughts about where we are, where we came from, and where we are
No,
today.
it's good to get that context because I think for the people that have been here, they lived it, and then the new people come in, and it's just like, why are things done this way, or why? And if you just take that step back and just have that conversation, it helps open and understand like why things are done a certain way or how you got to this point. I know um, I've been in other leagues where it's people try to run it like as a democracy, and any rule change is a vote done by everyone and that majority rules. And I've noticed here, and I appreciate here, that opinions are asked, people votes are made, but ultimately it's still the board decision on if it's truly something that we as a league are going to do. And I think uh, I respect that and appreciate that because I've seen it too many times that people vote for what's best for them and not what's best for the league as a whole, competition, just in you start making decisions that are not for the best of the league. And I'm assuming that's part of the reason what's made this league continue on for so long is just that type of leadership.
There's two main principles really in our league, I think, that makes it unique is we stick to those principles. Number one is we want to stick with the history of the league. History has developed. We take that really seriously. We take the storyline seriously, and also a sense of fair competition. And that doesn't necessarily mean equity, right? Not every team is equal or an equal footing with various aspects of the team, but rather fair competition, I think is more important. To realize that to really have something really realistic, if we all had the same budget, the same market size, what kind of fun is that, right? It's almost like you go into like if you play Madden in franchise mode and you just like take off the salary cap. I do that sometimes for like a couple hours for some fun and build some dream teams, you know. But like at the end of the day, is that really what it's about? I get more joy out of the process of building my team, planning over time. And this is the kind of league that is kind of has that structure. So I know we have arguments sometimes about this rule or that rule, what's fair, what's not. But at the end of the day, I think maintaining the sense of fair competition, realizing that the diversity of the teams we have is what makes the league interesting. You know, there's small markets, there's big markets, there's different kinds of cities out there, and so that's at least I think we've always stuck to that, and I think we all try to, but also I think valuing everybody is extremely important. I know Mike and Dylan feel that way, and I value all the writing, um, all the competition. I think being competitive makes it enjoyable for everybody else, right? Like if there's one weak link, it kind of hurts the entire league, right? If somebody isn't able to put the time in or is just struggling with one aspect or the other, somebody's always willing to help you out, give you advice, that kind of stuff, which I think is really important. So, but I'm really just thankful that we have such a great group of people that really really enjoy that. So, but I think that's the key to how we've been so far, because it's amazing we have such low turnover in our league for the years we have. It's
It
really
is, and
incredible.
it's really amazing to herd 32 people to have a winter meetings or a draft all at the same time. I mean, we've all probably been in fantasy leagues or just trying to get a group of friends together and how difficult that is. But then you multiply 32 people from all around the world, different time zones, and everyone makes an effort to do it. So it just
Mhm.
shows that it's that commitment and just wanting to play in a competitive environment, and that the other GMs are also here trying to beat your butt, but at the same time it's like I think people don't do this enough. Like if you have a question about something, ask it. Like I don't know if it's like people get afraid of, oh, no one's going to tell me because it's like some competitive secret or whatever, but it's like the league has a lot of rules. They're all documented, but your interpretation of what's being said might not be what the reality is. So just ask. Like, you can. I've asked you before about different rules, and Dylan and Mike are good about getting. If you have a question, asking it, and if you don't want to really tip your hand to the rest of the league, um, in Slack doing it in front of everyone. But you can reach out to people, and it's 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 nice. I think that would be my biggest recommendation to anybody that's new is just like don't feel like you're you're truly like alone. Yeah, you're competing against everyone, but I mean, you're not. But maybe you're gonna get like some magic bullet or easy button answer to everything. However, like if you come in and say, "Hey, I've never used 7-day lineups before. Does anyone? Can you tell me how when this would be a good thing to use?" Or people will be able to give their opinion on it. I thought like on the last podcast we were talking about the long stretches of games and how do you manage that. Like it was nice to see the discussion on in Slack afterwards on people's opinions on that, how they do it. So
Yeah.
just I think we all want to talk. Like it's nice to just talk to you about this type of stuff, and then be able to talk on Slack just because we all love this game and we all want it to be fun and competitive, and there's a reason why we're all still here. So
Yeah. And I'm very happy that anybody reaches out to me if you're have a question about a rule. If you want to know why we have that rule, I can probably tell you why. There's probably some forum discussion I can point you to. If I don't remember, I probably can look it up. I have a lot of archives saved, but there was usually some sort of there's always has been in our league a discussion about a rule change. Back in the days when we just used the forum, there's huge forum threads discussing rules and what effect that might have and different ideas. And we still continue to do that today, even in the Slack channel, to try to build some consensus. I think a diversity of thought is excellent. It would be really boring if we didn't have divergent opinions. We have a lot of diversity in this league, whether where people are ages, where people are from. I think is just great. The different experiences that are brought to the table are just what is actually a strength of this league, is that we do have some diversity of thought, and I think that's what makes us better. Is that we deliberate on those changes when carefully before we make them, and then we try to give people notice that we're going to make those changes as best we can, you
Yeah.
know, as best you can, so you can adjust as needed. So I'm just really thankful for everybody here.
So is there one rule change that's occurred that you just dislike? You were not for it.
I'd have to say a lot of times I'm probably playing devil's advocate just for the sake of it in discussions. Um, I try to advocate for the group of teams that are in my category, where we're like that upper mid-market team, you know. So, it's a different situation that we deal with where you do have a decent good budget, but you can't quite blow money like the big guys do, like not Drew Street money, casino money. You know, we don't got casino money. We got frozen water money here in Crystal Lake. By the way, this is downtown Crystal Lake behind me at Christmas season. I forgot to point that out. Big fan of Crystal Lake. I dragged my wife to Crystal Lake one summer, hour drive outside Chicago one summer. She's really thrilled. But just like get some history, go to Crystal Lake Brewery and get some photos and stuff. But anyway, kind of diverging here. But rule changes. One thing I really there's not a particular rule change in particular. I think the one thing that maybe at least I harbor disappointment for myself is the management we do as far as the market changes and fan interest changes at the end of the season, depending on the performance. Um, that was not something that was really enforced until Mike took over. And so I kind of missed out on that during the heyday of my team doing well. I missed out on maybe some market increases and and then when my team started to stink, I lost I lost points. my fan interest started to drop, and my fan loyalty started to drop, and so I've kind of gotten over that hump. But so that was something that I was kind of like, oh shucks, man. I wish when we had won the championship that I had the benefit of that, right? So but that's things that happen, right? Nothing
Yeah.
always is fair. Some things are going to affect somebody more than others. I'm glad that we got back to it, because it gives well-managed organizations the ability to grow. I think is important to reward that careful stewardship of your organization when you exceed expectations. I think it's a good thing that we do in the league. So even though I haven't benefited from it quite yet, I do think it's a good idea. And I would say that even if the rule or the change doesn't benefit me personally, if it benefits the league as a whole, I think that's the best thing for me, because if the league flourishes, my team flourishes is the way I look at it. I get to continue to enjoy this league, and the league, continues to be healthy if we have the right stewardship. So I try to look at it that way, even though I might go, oh, shucks, this kind of sucks for me. So I know we're talking right now about the qualifying offers. I have a divergent opinion. I love the qualifying offers because that's how I've been able to keep some picks in the bank over the years and bring in some talent. So I have a different opinion about it. I don't know what we'll decide or which direction we'll go. I appreciate everybody's opinions on it, but I try to, if I'm trying to bring my perspective, I try to bring the perspective beyond just my team and maybe similar situated teams. I try to advocate for those. But I think we always, I think I appreciate the fair discussion that we always all have when it comes to those kind of things. So
Yeah.
that's probably the best way I can frame it for you.
Well, on the qualifying offer thing, my personal opinion, I like the idea of a qualifying offer. I think the intent behind it is good. It's just a matter of that dollar amount. I think it's too low. I think there's guys that are getting offered qualifying offers that are just the intent is if you're having a superstar player leave your organization, you get something back for him. It shouldn't be like guy that's not even an all-star, like end of his career getting the qualifying offer. Like
Yeah, yeah. And I think maybe you make a good point. I think, if you look at the salary inflation our league has had over the last, you know, 20 seasons, if you look back at the history, um, maybe that number needs to go up in all fairness, or maybe we need to change that benchmark every season depending upon the top however many salaries there are, kind of like football does, right?
yeah,
That qualifying offer changes depending on the who where everybody ranks in their position. So maybe that's a thought or a compromise that could benefit everybody perhaps and still accomplish what we want, right?
yeah. Because I know Mike, when I've talked to Mike about it, he's like, "There's really not that many people that are getting offered him. Why does it matter?" And well, it right. I mean, if it's six guys, it's six guys. But if you bump that dollar amount up a little bit, it makes each GM have to decide: is this guy really worth like $18 million? Do I want to risk like a 1 year deal with it? Because right now it's just kind of that area where it's like, yeah, I want to tag him. I don't really want him on my team, but
Uh, and I think we might see it used potentially used more often, given that I think the in the general sense, I think a lot of organizations are very well managed and don't let go of their talent and do a good job at fostering their talent and trying to get reasonable extensions if they can with that talent. And so we might see more players become eligible for qualifying offer, I think, a little more than we did in the past. We used to have a lot of teams that were in a sense maybe feeder teams of some other organizations as trade as trade partners. I think that has lessened over the years as people get more sophisticated and careful. And maybe that's a tool that we still need in the bucket. That's just my perspective, though. I know everybody has their own perspective, but that's at least how I see it.
yeah, no, it's a topic you could talk about for hours. I mean, everyone's got their opinions on it. You have the people that are like just totally get rid of it, not worth it. And the others that are just 100% no, don't change it. It's definitely something. It's good to hear that you guys are talking about it and kind of weighing those things. And the other thing is like sometimes people are like when an idea comes up, you got to act on it now. I like how an idea may come up and it might be a season or two before something final is decided on it, that it's not rushed here. The pros and cons are laid out, and then the critical thinking on do we really want to do this or not.
You kind of got to be careful with those kind of changes, I think, because there's always unintended consequences that I think we should consider, whether it be other teams in the league, other finances. How does the game engine handle certain things that people suggest? It might sound good in real life, but at the end of the day, this is a game we're talking about, and it's not the most sophisticated AI that we have out there. So, we need to really to consider those things carefully. I think it's nice to have a good debate about it. So when we do make those changes, they're thoughtful. There's a process, um, so that things don't go awry unexpectedly. I think it's pretty important. I think we found that out over time.
All right, now after we've kind of gone through some of the history of the league, let's get to the fun part, talking about Crystal Lake.
My favorite topic, as you can see.
Favorite topic, yeah. That's one of the cool things here too. Is like since all the teams are made up, everyone can get their own gear and make their own team stuff. And I was just kind of in the break looking at Crystal Lake and kind of just the fun team names that you had mentioned on when we were talking earlier about in the league. Just looking at your team names, you got the Evansville Tri-Staters, the Brampton Camels, the El Cajon Virus, like Mogadishu Pirates, the is it Mauna Loa Vulcans? Yeah.
Yes, the Mauna Loa Vulcans. I actually was in Hawaii last week and stayed at that resort. So,
Oh, nice.
yes, yes. The Pirates is the team name that I came up with. I'm a big fan of, figured the Pirates. We got a cool logo there,
Yeah.
the Disney character.
Like when I first joined the league, I did my image file was all messed up, so I didn't even understand the amount of effort and work that went into all of these. And then my mind was just kind of blown when Mike was like, "Oh, there's a separate file for that. You need to." I'm like, "What?"
Oh
So I'm
yeah,
like,
oh yeah.
why does my minor leagues have just all these weird AI generated logos?
That's funny. I was excited when we expanded baseball into Africa and the Middle East. That was a big thing for our organization
Yeah,
to
we have
expand baseball and to love baseball around the world.
truly global. We can actually say we have a World Series.
Mhm. Indeed, indeed, we do. And Mogadishu is dear and near to my heart because that's where we turn boys into men in our organization. Is you go to Somalia for a couple of years, and you're going to be toughened up. We got a dirt field, and you learn how to play ball with
So
little
yeah, you
frills.
look at this whole entire the Red Sea League. I mean,
Oh yeah, it's
you can get out of that, you got a
yep,
shot.
that's right. You get out alive.
Yeah. So let's. Are you surprised with your start?
I'm pleased with it. Surprised? You never know. I sometimes I like have expectations and then things go a complete different direction. So this is what I hoped for my team. I think that's probably the best answer. I hoped
Yeah,
to
that's
have
fair.
this kind of start. Um, I got some younger guys that are developing and they're performing and exceeding expectations. And I've got a couple guys on fire right now who generally start slow. And so we're scoring runs at an incredible pace right now. I think we were like first or second in the SL for runs scored, tied for first. Yeah. I think I did the math. It's like five and some change, I think, runs per game or something like that. And so
Yeah,
my
you
goal
can
for
do
the
that.
season, my goal for this season was for us to score at least 4.25 runs a game. I thought that would give us the best chance at winning. And so we're way ahead of the curve right now. So I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, looking at your roster, I mean, you could tell the offense was going to be there, but your pitching has also been there. You're third in the SL and runs allowed. You're third in overall ERA, and it looks like your bullpen's really a lockdown so far. I mean, granted, we're talking Monday here, so before the sim,
We'll see what happens.
yeah, we'll
Probably
see what
jinxing
happens.
myself a couple hours before, right? We'll
Yeah,
see those. I seem to get shelled for home runs, uh, especially at home. So we'll see how those numbers hold up. I try really hard to get ground ball pitchers, and it really doesn't make much of a difference. So I can imagine how much worse it would be if I didn't have ground ball pitchers,
oh
really,
yeah.
for me. Yeah.
I was going to bring
But
that up. I actually was looking earlier. We switched to this the other screen here.
while you're switching there, I just as far as kind of like my thought process a little bit is I try to build I try to build my team and mirror around what Brian did when I took over. It was a very power centric team that got on base with some speed, and they were very successful. Um, our league was more of a pitching league back then, so we had a really, really strong pitchers. But um, I've kind of tried to model my team after what Brian had did all those years back.
well, I mean, it makes sense if you got heavy pitching, control that part of the game. But if you can get that little bit of an edge and on the offensive side, then you're that much and above everybody else. So
Yeah, it's not to sound like, the late John Madden, but you gotta score more runs than the other guy. Yeah. It's like it's not, it's not that, when it comes down to it, that's really what it is, right? And so it's like
yeah,
that's I kind of like I'm trying to formulate, at least in my mind, I try to formulate a roster and a lineup that gives you the best chance to score. And there's different ways of doing that depending on the team you are and the park you play in, or the other parks that you do play in matter
yeah.
as well. I think that's important to look at.
Well, and what kind of triggered me to pull this screen up, I was looking at it earlier, and you were talking about your home run totals, and really, like you're down here towards the bottom on park factor and for home runs, but that just I think is a testament to the power that you have in your lineup that you're still putting up those numbers when you're really at like at least for home run and park factor you're a little bit below average on there. So definitely makes
And I've
sense to have the strong pitching with it too.
I've never understood why we historically get a lot of home runs hit against our pitchers. Like I've tried everything really. I've tried ground ball guys. I've tried to get guys with great movement. Like I bring guys in with big movement and they get shackled, like just destroyed when they come to Crystal Lake. And I'm just like, man,
What is
I'm
going on
sorry.
here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the other big topic, and thank you for providing some quotes that we could use uh, with Carl Burrow and the thought process that went behind it. But
Yeah.
what are your what are your thoughts so far on just his kind of adjustment to PEBA and where he's at right now?
Um I didn't realize I would cause so much controversy and discussion amongst you guys. I don't know what to think about that. That's a good thing or a bad thing. I didn't intend it that way in the beginning. You know, I think I think there's just a couple things that go in is that, I think when you're looking at like a move or a deal, I try to look at least on the surface, you go, whoa, that's insane. Like, why the hell would you do that, right? Um, and I don't think it's normally a move I would have done normally. But there's a couple windows you have, at least in the Great Lakes division, since we were usually pretty tight and there's no real dominant team usually, is your way into the playoffs is to win our division. And so if you have a shot at it and that window happens, I feel like you got to be all in on it. Because I mean, I've had 100+ win teams that like lost in the first round, and then I've won the championship winning like 89 games. So like getting in the playoffs matters. I think I try to play the odds. I'm a little bit of a gambler and I like to try to play the odds as best I can. And so if that's a move, I felt like it was a move that was right for our team at this moment. We have a lot of young guys, some money to spend that kind of made sense for us. At least in my analysis overall, there's some positions that are a premium in our league that are hard to get. And so that would be middle infield, center field, and catcher are those are the toughest positions. If you can develop somebody in-house in your system that can fit that, be really good in those positions, you kind of have a leg up on everybody because you're going to have to spend to fill that position to have a strong player. So, and this is one of the areas I was willing to spend in because I really didn't have anybody. Everybody I thought I was going to develop for this role wasn't really coming through for me. And so for me, this was plugging a hole at a position that we had no chance in developing. And the salary kind of worked out for us where we are today because we kind of been in a rebuilding circumstance for the last 5 seasons. And so we kind of, when you're kind of rebuilding and you're kind of shedding some salary, you have room to make these kind of moves. And so we decided that was the right move for us to do here, is just being able to get a guy who's going to be premium and one of the top 5 guys probably. I would hope in center field, for years to come is what I hope. One of the moves maybe that a little background, give you some background on me, is I regret trading one of my center fielders back in the day. Uh, I traded Pedro Flores to Greg maybe the second year I was in the league, and that was a dumb trade. Uh, it was dumb. I don't think I valued him as much as I should have. I traded him for a pitcher that really didn't matter much. I was trying to make that run there, and so I value players differently than I did early on in the league. So I'm hopeful. Right now, I'm happy. I'm surprised by the power right now. I didn't think that would develop right now. I decided to put him at fifth because I wanted to see how his contact was going to be. I want him to play third though. So I think if he continues developing, he probably will move to third, batting third. Um, I know there was a question about him stealing. I think somebody asked about that.
Yeah,
I do play with the player strategies, and I do have him being a little bit more aggressive. Maybe not run every single time. I think I'd be careful on that. The guys who are like 10-10, I think you can run them all day long. Just do it. Like they're top. These guys are like just they're driving like a sports car basically
yeah,
across the bases. Like they're so fast, right? Um, the guys who are like 8 speed, uh,
different.
they get caught a lot,
Yeah,
and he's in that range for me. So I got him going. But he's batting fifth, so he doesn't have a lot of opportunities yet.
I was gonna say
So
like when you look at just his opportunities, and I think we kind of touched on this in the last one, but
yeah,
you look at his opportunities and he he's hitting the ball so hard. He's really hasn't had that many opportunities to steal bases. So
no, and he's not that guy for me. He's not my leadoff guy, right? He's not
right,
going to be that guy. He's like a number two, number three, I hope, kind of batter. I would like to
yeah.
see him there. A guy who can drive the ball in the gap and move guys along the bases is my hope for him,
Well, I
really.
had
And I
this turned on earlier, but everyone I'll show it so everyone can see. Because everyone probably has similar views, but you know, OSA obviously loves him, but
yeah.
my scout loves him too. I mean, how can like when to your point
Mm,
earlier about just trying to find guys. There, how many center fielders? I think when or I think on Slack I commented about this, but I ran through and when you look at how many center fielders have seven contact, seven home run power, and seven I, and are eight rated on defense, there's nobody. Like
no.
it's Gordon Knopp probably, and I don't even think Knopp has seven home run power. So I think that was why he didn't qualify for that. But
And that's generational talent.
yeah,
Like, I mean, that's
so if
what
you
he
spent the
is.
money international, you'd have to wait 4 or 5, maybe 6 years before that guy ever
Mhm.
gets to your team. So you're getting that now. So yeah, it's a team by team decision, but it's less and less crazy when you really start peeling back that onion on it.
And this isn't a move for everybody. I mean, everybody's in
Right.
different situations. This was for, and I'm generally pretty conservative. I don't trade as much anymore. I'm pretty deliberate. Um, you know, I and this was kind of a little out of character for me, but just because it was the right situation. I liked what it did to the rest of my lineup. I like to have Ron at like fifth, and I love having Lima at fourth, and I just I'm just having some of those younger guys about his age developing. And I just really am excited about this particular lineup because it's taken so many years to put it together. A lot of these guys are draft picks.
Right.
So uh, I'm just really pleased about putting this kind of feels like a centerpiece to it. Is it an overpay? Yeah, I agree. It's an overpay. But I think if you got to take chances, if you never take a chance, then what's the what you're not gonna. I think you're gonna win. So I
Well,
think it was the right time, right time. I could take a chance
yeah, and
for
you're
us,
you're not going to get a player like that in that environment if you don't overpay. So like we
and
can
not
all
right
set our
now.
values on players, but if you're saying, oh, this year I project him for X amount of WAR and I value WAR at this dollar amount, so he's not worth it. It's like, well, you're never going to get him anyway. So what's the
Yeah. It- and for me, this is not the year I'm really projecting anyway for myself. I'm always trying to think of move. If they make a move today, what does that do for my team 3 years from now? That's always my thought process. And so Honestly, this was not a move for this year. I am excited he's performing the way he is right now, but that was not my plan. So just like this is a bonus for me at this
Yeah.
point, really. As I'm gonna have some salary drop off as some older guys drop off and his salary will decline. I'm excited for what we can build a couple years down the road for our team.
Yeah. Well,
So
with the few
yeah.
minutes that we have left, let's hear your thoughts on the rest of the division. Who
Oh
do you
man.
have to look out for that you think? I mean, obviously Kalamazoo won the division last year, so they're going to be and they're tied with you or a half game back right now before the sim. But it
Yeah, I
seems like
am.
you've got the teams there are improving as well.
We started off with two losses to Fargo. And so sometimes it just goes that way, especially when you're starting off the season. I'm pretty surprised by Fargo's slow start, actually. Um, Jaime is putting together a good team again this year. Um, I thought they might start dropping off a little bit because he's made some moves, losing a little bit of talent that I might not have made myself, but he's doing it his way, and that's awesome. Still a tough team, so it's going to be just super competitive because the malts are now even more competitive now. There's a lot of young talent on that team that's going to continue to develop. So I look at them as really a foe down next couple seasons as well. So yeah, it's just going to be a tough battle. I consider all these teams to be competitive, and they're all managed by really smart GMs. So
I was going to say, when
um,
you start looking at the top system rankings, and everyone has their opinion on those, but a lot of them are in your division. So it's definitely going to
yeah,
be a growing and tight battle for the years to come.
and if you have a move to make in a division, you should go for it because it might not come back around for you too soon. And um, Fargo is just really smart at drafting, has been since he's been in the league. He's one of the OGs, and he's really good at developing talent and drafting good talent. So yeah, I don't suspect this last place will be last that long for him.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
No, it's every time you look at this, it's like, all right, this guy's getting closer. This guy's getting closer. Uh, I think there's a couple. I was looking earlier today at Fargo, and they had a couple guys that were just, yeah, you got this Reyna, who's a triple A, Echevarria, he's at triple A, not that far off. Another pitcher reliever that looks decent. Another one,
yeah,
double A, and a lot of their hitters are getting close to double A and triple A ones here. So it's like
yeah.
getting close, and it's always fun to look at that because you have different strategies for different teams on how they build, and that's one thing I know Scott touched on it a little bit on one of his podcasts, and it's something that I want to do a deeper dive on here of looking at kind of not just how the top teams are built, but just kind of look into how they continue to stay at that level because you know it's not just the draft. Like people focus on the draft all the time, but these top teams are drafting at the back of the draft. So how are they like maintaining that? And something I want to dig into more.
Winning begets winning in this league, and so you got to be careful when you choose to tap into that reserve in your system, whether it be trades or bring people up and make sure it's the right time, because you're tapping into that well, and you always want to make sure you're filling that well back up, whether it be international free agents, trades if you're maybe out of it, which we did last season to add some assets. There's other areas to do that. Maybe qualifying offers.
Yeah,
One of my favorite tools in the bank as well. So there's other areas, and I think winning provides you money, and if you're careful with how you financially manage your team, you're going to have different areas to spend that money. Um, One of the things that I think I did, I don't know if I regret it, But when we had like a stretch of like some 190 some win seasons, and we're kind of in the thick of it, I kept throwing the chips in, kept throwing them in, and we kept coming up short, kept coming up short, and that cost me in the long run. You just gotta make a choice. Is that what you want to do, and be willing to accept that cycle, come back around, you know? And if you don't, you better financially manage your team well, because then it'd be in a deep hole that would take even longer to get out of. So you better, if you're gonna go that way, you better have an exit strategy if it doesn't work out. So I've kind of been in one of those rebuilding cycles because I'm paying the price for what I did 10 seasons ago, to be
Well, and
honest.
you have to learn to make that, like, draw that line in the sand of, okay, enough's enough. I do need to go into rebuild mode now, or I need to. I mean, even last year for you, we worked a couple of trades, and it wasn't like you were saying I'm going into full reload mode or rebuild mode. You're here this year and you're competing. So just being able to realize that, hey, I'm not going to be able to move forward. Like, I'm not going to be in the playoffs this year, but what can I do with a guy that has an expiring contract, or right around trade deadline time?
Yeah,
Not
I think that's a smart thing to do, is to always look at that. And that's why I try to look 3 seasons ahead, is to ask myself, am I holding on to this guy for what reason 3 years from now? And if the answer is no, then try to get something back for him. Try to get a trade, get some value back so you can develop your system, perhaps. And that's what I like so much about this league. There's so many different aspects that you can build around and choose your own strategy. And I enjoy looking at how everybody else builds their teams and the other strategies everybody else employs. And I'm sure everybody thinks their strategy is the best. Uh, you know,
of
we
course,
all
yeah.
do. We all do. And
Like,
that's
what
just,
the hell are these other
yeah.
guys doing?
I can't believe that. Oh,
Yeah,
you idiot. I've never done that. I like to tease Jaime about that sometimes,
yeah,
just because he's my friend and he works with me. But it's all in good fun.
yeah.
That's what it's all
Well,
about here.
RJ, thank you for your time. We'll definitely get you on future ones of these, but I appreciate it. Appreciate your thoughts on just the league and your team, and we'll be definitely checking in as the season
Hey,
goes on.
hey, it's great to be here, and everybody out there, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Mike, Dylan, anybody, or anybody else in the league for help. We're all part of the same community, and so if you ever need anything, whether it's personal or it's part of our league, we're all here for each other. And so it's a pleasure to be with you, Sean, and thanks for doing this podcast. I appreciate it.
Yep, no worries. Thank you. Till next time, we'll see you guys.